Hello, hello, and welcome back to Living in Alignment with Madeline Hope. So, I'm recording this on Wednesday, July 29th, which is literally on the Aquarius Full Moon. So, I've had a very interesting process trying to decide how I want to approach this episode. Last week, I went off script. I had the astrology in front of me, I had my notes and my references, but I let you hear me actually work through it and make the connections in real time. And I ended up talking for like an hour and 15 minutes, which was obviously not the goal. But I listened back to it. And even though there were pieces where I could hear myself searching for my words or taking a while to get to the point, there were also parts that felt so much more like me. It felt like an actual conversation instead of me reading you a perfectly organized interpretation that I had. So I think I learned two things. One, I really do like letting you guys into my thought process. I like allowing this podcast to be a place where we can learn astrology together. I think that's so fun, and where I don't have to pretend that every chart immediately hands me one perfect answer, because it's definitely not like that. Like, it's very much like just interpretations. And yes, we are using guides and we are using references and we're getting this information from somewhere, but astrology has a lot of room for interpretation. And so I really do love doing that together. But two, speaking organically doesn't mean I need absolutely no structure, because apparently, if I have no structure, I will open 17 different doors, walk through all of them, and then somehow find three more. So today I have, I guess we'll just call like a map. I'm not reading a perfectly polished script by any means, and I don't have one giant lesson that I'm trying to make all of the astrology fit inside of. But I do know where we're going. We are going to begin with the Aquarius full moon happening today that I record this, because it is a huge part of the atmosphere we're carrying into this episode. Then we'll move through astrology from Friday, July 31st through Friday, August 7th. It's crazy. We're already moving into August. And what's interesting is that this upcoming week isn't really building towards another like enormous moment. It's showing us what happens after one. We're moving away from this huge Aquarius full moon through the last quarter moon and towards the Leo solar eclipse on August 12th. So this is very much an in-between week. We're not at the beginning of something, but we're not completely finished with what that full moon brought up. We're in the part where the initial intensity settles enough for us to figure out what it actually means. And speaking from 4 p.m. on the day of the full moon, I definitely did not get this very clear message on this full moon. I've had so many like downloads today, so many thoughts. My brain's been going all over the place. Obviously, I have so many Aquarius placements, large Aquarius placements. It is my sun sign. So I have been questioning a lot of things, especially in regard to my purpose. Aquarius is my midheaven. So a lot of career things have been on the forefront of my mind, but again, like, no clarity has landed today. So I do believe that this is definitely a full moon that we are going to process and understand as the. Okay, so let's start with this full moon. It perfected this morning on Wednesday, July 29th at 6 degrees and 30 minutes of Aquarius opposite the sun in Leo. But it wasn't simply an Aquarius moon sitting across from a sun in Leo. The sun was almost exactly conjunct Jupiter in Leo. In fact, the Sun-Jupiter conjunction happened only a couple hours before the full moon this morning. Then on the other side, the Aquarius moon was sitting close to Pluto. So we have Jupiter magnifying the Leo side of this opposition and Pluto intensifying the Aquarius side. Both sides are loud. Both sides are important. Both sides have a much larger story attached to them than just the sun and moon would have by themselves. Aquarius is a very powerful fixed energy. Leo, very powerful fixed energy. Jupiter, it is the largest. It expands everything. It is the definition of big. Pluto is the most intense planet. That is like the planet of intensity, quite literally. So this is big and it is intense. Aquarius is the part of us that can step back and look at the larger system. It notices patterns. It looks towards the future. It thinks about community, culture, collective change, and how everything connects. But Aquarius can also become so good at observing that it disconnects from the actual human experience. It can understand an emotion without necessarily letting itself feel the emotion. It can see the pattern without knowing what it personally wants to do about it. Leo is very different. It is the opposite. Leo wants to participate. Leo wants to create, play, express, take up space, and experience life through the heart. Leo doesn't only want to understand what joy is. Leo wants to feel joyful. It wants to make something, share something, love something, and allow that experience to matter simply because it matters to them personally. Very involved energy. Normally, we would interpret this full moon as a tension between the individual and the group, or between personal expression and collective belonging. But Jupiter and Pluto make that tension so much bigger. With Jupiter conjunct the sun in Leo, the desire to grow, create, experience, and believe in what is possible can feel so huge right now. This can bring us confidence, optimism, and genuine excitement, but it can also really magnify our egos, our expectations, or our belief that something has to become huge in order to be meaningful. Then the moon near Pluto in Aquarius can bring up powerful feelings that we may initially try to observe from a distance. We might become deeply aware of the systems, identities, communities, or future plans that are shaping us. And because Pluto is involved, we may realize that we can't return to seeing something the way we saw it before. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. So it usually brings a pretty clean break in something. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be some really dramatic external event. I think we sometimes hear oh, powerful full moon, Pluto, and expect our entire lives to blow up immediately. And sometimes the shift is more internal than that. Sometimes it is very external and literal, but depending on what houses are getting lit up, if this is your 12th house, it could be extremely internal for you. Sometimes you recognize that an idea has more power over you than you realize. Our minds, our thoughts are so powerful, and changes in our mind are huge, drastic things, even though it doesn't look like it to the outside. There are possibilities that maybe start to emerge that don't necessarily fit the version of the future that you've had planned. Maybe there's just little sprinkles of insight that kind of shift your path to where, yeah, it may not look that drastic like right now in the next coming days, weeks, but whenever you look at where you're at, a year, 5 years from now, and look where you would have been had you not have like this recollection or this idea, whatever it is, your path could be completely different. That's the kind of shift, the kind of drastic change that I'm kind of predicting here. I think that this one, especially with Pluto being involved, I think that this one specifically is going to be one that over time we see like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize how much I was like changing my life whenever I was doing those things. Like, I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know that opportunity was going to find me because I did that. I didn't know that connection was going to open this door. That's the kind of shifts I'm seeing happening right now. And then only a few days before this full moon, the lunar nodes moved into Aquarius and Leo, which we talked about last week. And that doesn't make this full moon an eclipse, but it does introduce the axis that will hold the upcoming. So I think this moon is giving us an early look at questions that we're going to continue working around with visibility, individuality, creativity, leadership, community, and belonging, all Aquarius Leo axis themes. Who am I when I'm not performing a role for other people? What do I genuinely want to contribute? Where have I made myself an observer because participating feels more vulnerable? And where have I become so focused on being individually special that I've disconnected from the people and the communities around me? There isn't one correct side of the axis. That's the thing I'm always explaining about astrology. It's not, oh, this sign is so toxic. Oh, this planet is so dangerous. Like, the axis is meant to be a balance. We're not supposed to become completely detached and give everything to the collective Aquarius, but we're also not supposed to make everything about our own expression, our own recognition, our own importance. The work is allowing ourselves to be fully individual while remembering that we exist in relationship with other people. For me personally, this full moon is like almost ridiculously exact with my chart. The Aquarius moon is sitting on my Mercury, my Neptune, and my midheaven, and it's opposing my Leo North Node and my Leo moon. So this is touching my voice, the way I think and communicate. Hence why I had such a hard time with figuring out this podcast today. Because I'm like, oh, I could do this. I could do this. No, I should do it this way. And then I just finally had to be like, Maddie, it's 4 p.m. Just sit down and get your freaking microphone and just talk. But this is touching like the way I think, communicate, the work I'm known for, my public direction, my emotional life, the direction I'm learning to grow towards. And I can feel that. I can feel that. It feels like chains wrapped around my ankles, but also like the stars in the sky, like asking for me to reach them. That is like the most ridiculous, like, visual I could give, but that's like truly how it feels. There are things happening in my life that feel connected to these themes, but I don't necessarily have a clean interpretation of all of it yet. And I don't think I need to force one just because I host an astrology podcast. That's actually part of reading these transits responsibly. The fact that a transit is exact tells us where to pay attention. It doesn't mean we have to make a giant decision or announce that the transit means this before like we've really had time to digest it. I know that something around my voice, visibility, work, my future is activated. I know this full moon is like personal to me. It feels that way, but I can let that be true without immediately assigning one single outcome to it. It's like, let this big event happen, and I don't need to perform for that either. And if this full moon is sitting close to important placements in your chart, especially around 3 to 9 degrees of Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or Scorpio, you may feel it very personally too. I have an Aquarius sun, Leo moon, Taurus rising. So, like, and all of the other things I listed. So, yeah, this is like insanely personal for me. And if you are on the same page, I just want to let you know that I hear you. Things are a little bit heavy and weird right now. We can't see what's going on for us. We can't see what's unfolding. I love the analogy I used in my podcast episode, like kind of at the beginning of this, I think, where I talked about the visual with the caterpillar. Sorry, I thought I heard my robot vacuum on, but I think it's just outdoor construction. I was like, why is my vacuum on? The visual with the caterpillar, where it's like a caterpillar is just crawling on, rocks in the ground and eating leaves and whatever, and it has no idea that its body is currently preparing for it to fly one day. It has no idea that whenever it's like doing the things to build the cocoon, and it's like in the dark gooey cocoon, and it's like, going through all this really weird, maybe painful, confusing change, it has no idea that it's about to grow wings and fly. And I love that analogy, and I think that that analogy may be something you need to hear right now again. So, and again, just because a full moon is lighting up your chart a whole bunch, it doesn't mean always that there's going to be some external drastic thing. It may just simply mean that the questions raised by this moon are getting really hard for you to ignore. And those things unfold in our lives in big ways. By the time this episode comes out on Friday, the moon will be leaving Aquarius and entering Pisces, and that is a very notable. We're moving from an incredibly stimulating full moon with Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, and the nodes all involved into a Pisces moon that needs space to absorb everything. Pisces doesn't process experience by organizing it or, try to put it into a list. It processes through feeling, imagination, rest, music, creativity, dreams. It's a water sign, so some movement, flowy movement, yoga, sometimes simply doing nothing for a while. So Friday could feel like a bit of an energetic come down. You may be more tired than you expected. You may feel emotional without knowing exactly what you're emotional about. You may feel inspired but have trouble turning that inspiration into a concrete plan. That's because, you don't need a concrete plan on Friday. We're feeling. And the Pisces moon will square Uranus and Gemini, so the day may not be completely peaceful or sleepy. There can still be nervous energy, interruptions, because we have Uranus changing plans, or the feeling that part of you wants rest while another part wants stimulation. Pisces moon and Uranus and Gemini forming a square is very like conflicting energy. This is a day where forcing yourself to choose between those needs is going to create more frustration. So maybe you just need a slower morning and something interesting later. Maybe you need quiet, but you also need to move your body in some type of way. Maybe you need to write down the idea without letting it turn into a full project. Friday feels like less of a decision day and more of like a digestion day. And how do you let yourself have balance with processing and feeling things and getting up and also moving and being out there and exploring new things and gaining new information? How do you have a balance there that leaves you not feeling unmotivated or unfulfilled, but also doesn't leave you feeling completely ran out and exhausted and overspent? Saturday keeps us under that same Pisces moon. So, same kind of energy here. This energy can be great for creativity, spending a time outside. It's summer, so being near water, moving intuitively, listening to music, painting, making any type of art, and letting yourself follow what feels interesting without needing it to be productive. Pisces energy can blur boundaries and can also lean into escapism. So just pay attention to what you're absorbing, and ask yourself things like, are you actually tired, or have you been around someone else's exhaustion? Are you genuinely confused, or are you taking in too many opinions? Are you resting because your body needs rest, or are you disappearing from something you don't want to deal with? That answer doesn't need to be like dramatic in any type of way. I say to ask those things simply to just notice where your energy is going, and then you can make educated decisions off of that. The moon will eventually connect harmoniously with Mercury in Cancer, which may make it easier to name what you've been feeling. But because both Pisces and Cancer communicate emotionally, they're water signs, the conversation might not be like perfectly logical. You may understand something through a memory, a feeling, a dream, or a seemingly like really random conversation. It could just come to you and you're like, I don't really know why I know that, but I just do. Saturday is not asking us to prove what we know. It's asking us to just listen and stay open. Sunday begins with the Pisces moon squaring Mars in Gemini. And that can feel like mental and emotional overstimulation. The Pisces moon may want to move slowly, while Mars in Gemini has 5 ideas, 3 errands, 2 conversations, and something it suddenly wants to research. Mars in Gemini is action, it's passion and fire, it's moving, and it's the wildfire is spreading. That is like Mars in Gemini. So if Sunday feels scattered or irritating, notice where your mind is asking more from you than your body can comfortably give. Later in the day, the moon moves into Aries and the energy starts to shift. Aries brings us back into direct experience instead of floating around all of these possibilities we may suddenly want to do. This could feel motivating after a soft Pisces weekend, but we don't necessarily need to turn the first spark of motivation into some giant commitment. So just use the Aries moon to begin moving again. Go for a walk, start the conversation, write down the idea, just take a small step. You can follow the energy without requiring it to prove where everything is going. With the moon in Aries and Mars in Gemini, there may be this intense pressure to move, but just focus on one step at a time. And I feel that if you go through this Pisces moon without ignoring the things you're consuming and ignoring the things you're trying to escape, then you will be less surprised when all of that fire in the air is like pushing you to go. Monday is one of the more important days of the week because Chiron stations retrograde at 0 degrees and 52 minutes of Taurus. Chiron only entered Taurus on June 19th, so we have barely begun this new chapter. And now Chiron is pausing at the very beginning of Taurus before eventually returning to Aries in September. That makes this less like the full Chiron and Taurus story that we talked about before and more like a introduction. Chiron points towards wounds, sensitivity, healing, teaching, the wisdom we develop because something has required us to understand it more deeply. In Taurus, those themes can connect to the body, self worth, money, material security, stability, pleasure, food, nature, and our ability to trust that we have enough or that we are enough. You can also see more specifically to your chart by seeing what house is ruled by Taurus in your chart. Since June 19th, you may have begun noticing a new sensitivity around that area of your life from that house. Maybe your relationship with your body has been asking for more attention if this is in your first house. Maybe you've become more aware of fears surrounding money or stability, second house. Maybe something has changed the way you measure your worth. That's another second house theme. Maybe you've realized that what appears stable from the outside doesn't make your body feel safe. With Chiron stationing retrograde, we're being given a brand new assignment on Monday. We're being asked to revisit what has already started surfacing. Because Chiron will return to Aries, this retrograde also connects Taurus questions of safety and worth with Aries questions of identity and self-trust. You can also look at that deeper by seeing what house is ruled by Aries in your chart. And ask yourself, late Aries to be specific, and ask yourself, can I feel secure without abandoning myself? Can I take action without constantly having to prove myself? Can I build stability that actually supports who I am instead of stability that requires me to stay the same forever? The Aries moon on Monday may make us want answers quickly, but Chiron stationing is a slower process. Pay attention to what feels tender without immediately deciding that tenderness means you're doing something wrong. Sensitivity is information. It is not always an instruction to stop. It's a lot of times just like pay attention here, like gather some notes. Just maybe it's just giving you a hint as to who you are. As I feel like that's a huge part of life is like we're here trying to put together our puzzle, like who we are, what lights us up, what we're good at. Like our lives are a big part of just figuring out ourselves. So I believe that sensitivity a lot of times is just like dropping little hints, like, oh, here's something you care about. And then Tuesday continues with the moon in Aries. There aren't as many major exact planetary events this day on Tuesday, which actually gives us a little room to work with what Monday stirred up and still coming down from the full moon. Aries energy can be incredibly clarifying because it brings us back into instinct. Aries, I always describe Aries as like they are the baby. They are the baby of the zodiac. They react on instinct. That's why they are, known for being reactive, very passionate. They are just like most people will, experience something, think about it, and then respond. Aries is like something happens, respond. There's like no in between there. That is like Aries energy. It's what do I want? What am I angry about? Where do I need movement? Or what am I ready to begin? But Aries can confuse immediacy with accuracy. Just because you want to act right now does not mean that right now is the only opportunity. Use Tuesday to experiment. Take one action and see how your body responds to it. say one honest sentence instead of delivering a 20-minute speech. Try the idea before reorganizing your entire life around it. This is something that I struggle with so bad. I'm like, oh, like what I've been freaking doing lately. Oh, I should update some photos on my website. And then I end up like, instead of just doing that, deciding that I want to completely rebuild my entire website and create this whole project for myself. I am learning to not do that. And that is essentially what I am speaking against here. Just take a step. You don't have to create a project out of everything. How many of us go into our like closet and be like, oh, we're going to put a few, pieces of clothes away, and then we end up like being like, I decided I need to go through and declutter my closet and get rid of a bunch of things, and like what should have only taken you like 20 minutes now took you like 3 weeks. That's me. That's what I'm talking about here. And that is like very Moon and Aries energy. And so just be careful of that on Tuesday, and let yourself just make one step and then see how your body feels. If you really like, if you are like, okay, I'm going to just decide to get rid of one thing. I'm not going to, raid my entire closet, just one thing. I'm going to look and I'm going to put it away. And then if you do that and your body's like, wow, that felt amazing. Okay, then keep doing it. But if you do one and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of like done, then be done. You don't have to decide your entire afternoon off of, some peak of motivation, peak of what's the word, like fire, motivation. Like you just get this spurt of motivation. It's like, oh, I have this energy, that means I need to redo my entire closet. No, like just like literally do one thing and then see how you feel. By Wednesday, the moon is in Taurus, and late Wednesday night, we reach the last quarter moon at 13 degrees Taurus, or third quarter moon, whatever you prefer to call it. The last quarter moon is not a manifestation phase. It is an adjustment and a reset, a rest point. It asks us to look at what has unfolded since the full moon and decide what needs to be released, what needs shed, changed, simplified, or integrated before the next lunar cycle begins. This Taurus moon squares the Leo sun. Leo is expression, growth, visibility. Taurus is stability, consistency, physical safety. And again, neither side is wrong. An idea can be exciting and still require more support. A choice can be stable and still feel lifeless. A dream can be real without its current form being realistic. The Taurus moon brings the entire week back into the body. After the enormous Aquarius Leo full moon, ask yourself, what part of that energy can I actually live? Not what sounds most impressive, not what makes the best story. What can become part of your real life? What fits inside your time, your energy, your money, your relationships, your responsibilities, your nervous system? This isn't Taurus trying to make the dream smaller. It's Taurus asking how the dream becomes tangible. I say this all the time. This is something, I'm a Taurus rising. Okay. So like Taurus runs deep in everything that I do. I am big with this in how I coach. I'm like, I don't care if you ideally, I do care, but I don't care if you ideally would love to have 1 hour gym sessions and, a 1 hour run 5 days a week. I love that. That's an ambitious goal, but we are not going to make a plan for you right off the bat like that whenever you currently have no fitness routine because you don't ever feel motivated to go to the gym. You don't have energy to go to the gym. We are not going to put you on this insanely unrealistic plan. It's a great dream. Absolutely. It's great that you want that. That's telling. But making that mean that, okay, that means if I'm going to go to the gym, if I'm going to get healthy, if I'm going to be active, then that means I'm going to go to the gym every day after work for 1 hour. And then after that, I'm going to go on a run every day. And I have to do this because guess what? Whenever, Monday comes around, Wednesday comes around, like it always does, and you're exhausted after work, and you've been in the habit of just being, like exhausted after work and handling kids or finances or home situations or whatever it is you have outside of work. Maybe it's just tending to your nervous system because it's so overloaded after work. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, not only are you thinking, oh, now I have to go to the gym, but now you're like, oh, I have to go to the gym and I have to go to the gym for an hour and I have to go on a run after that. And then I have to wake up and go to work again. And then after work tomorrow, I have to do it again. And that's just like so much. And so then you don't do it and you never start. And that's why Taurus comes in and it says, what does your body, what does your finances, can you afford a gym membership? Can you afford the kind of food you're looking at? What resources do you have of a gym? Yeah, I would love to go to this like extravagant, fancy gym where I didn't have to fight for equipment the entire time, but that's not the realistic structure. So what can I do with the resources, with the time, with the energy that I realistically have on a average day-to-day basis? After the Aquarius and Leo, very air and fire, passion can get a little bit unrealistic, a little bit dreamy. Aquarius and Leos are very creative signs, can be very ambitious. Taurus comes in and says, hold the phone, hold up. I love where you're going, but we have to start with something attainable and realistic and work from there. And that a lot of times can feel like a little bit of an ego death. It can feel frustrating. And I just want to tell you that no one is expecting that out of you. Nobody. At the end of the day, nobody really cares that much. Nobody does. We all, at the end of the day, are with ourselves. You're going to bed yourself. And yeah, you may have a partner in the bed. And if you have kids, like obviously they're a huge part. They're part of who you are if you have kids. But at the end of the day, it's you. And it's your family. And it's your children. And it's you. And you don't need to perform for anybody else. Nobody's telling you that you need to go to the gym that many days a week and that your routine needs to look like this and your food needs to look like this. Nobody's telling you that. They may be trying to sell you that. They may be saying that because that's what works for them, but nobody is saying that's what you have to do. And if they are, then they're wrong. Because all you have to do is take care of yourself in whatever way that looks like. And that is a very Taurus theme. Thursday brings a really supportive shift. Venus enters Libra, one of the signs Venus rules, and the sun in Leo forms a trine with Saturn in Aries late Thursday night. Venus has been in Virgo since July 9th. Venus in Virgo expresses love through thoughtfulness, usefulness, helping, planning, improving, paying attention to the details. And that can be beautiful, but it can also become overly critical. We can start evaluating every relationship, purchase, creative project, meal, or experience by whether it was useful enough, healthy enough, efficient enough, or the right thing. When Venus enters Libra, the focus shifts from improvement to relationship. We become more interested in balance, beauty, connection, cooperation, fairness, and how an experience feels when it's shared. But Venus in Libra is not simply about keeping everyone happy. The shadow side is avoiding necessary tension to preserve the appearance of peace. Real balance sometimes requires an uncomfortable conversation. Real reciprocity may require us to stop giving more than we genuinely want to give. Real connection cannot be created by quietly resenting the compromises we agreed to. Then the sun in Leo trines Saturn in Aries. I really like this aspect for the end of this particular week. The full moon showed us something enormous. Chiron brought attention to what feels tender. The Taurus last quarter, third quarter moon asked us what's sustainable. Now Sun trine Saturn says, okay, what structure would actually support this? This is fire supporting fire. Leo brings the creative vision, the confidence, the heart. Saturn in Aries brings discipline, maturity, patience, and responsibility for our own choices. Saturn is not shutting the idea down here. Saturn is helping us give it form. This is good energy for choosing a boundary, making a plan, committing to a practice, creating a schedule, or taking responsibility for the part of the situation that is genuinely ours to have. You don't need to know the entire future. You only need enough structure to support the next step. Finally, next Friday, the moon enters Gemini. The energy becomes lighter, quicker, more conversational, and mentally active. The Gemini moon will connect with Uranus, which can bring sudden ideas, unexpected conversations, changing plans, or a completely different perspective. After a week of emotionally processing, body awareness, and practical adjustment, Friday may feel like fresh air. You may finally have words for something you've been feeling. You may hear someone explain an idea in a way that suddenly makes sense in your brain. You may become curious about an option you haven't considered before. The important thing is to remain curious. Gemini energy does not need every idea to become a commitment. It learns by asking questions, trying things, talking, noticing, and allowing new information to change the conversation. So write things down, have the conversation, follow the interesting feeling, the interesting lead. Just remember that an exciting idea is allowed to be an idea before it becomes a plan. Looking at this whole week, I don't think it's asking us to force a conclusion out of the Aquarius full moon. It's showing us how an experience moves through different layers. First, we see the larger pattern, then we feel it, then we respond instinctively. Then the body asks what can actually support. And finally, we begin giving the idea some kind of form. So maybe the question for the week is not, what did the full moon mean? Maybe it's simply, what remains once intensity settles? What idea is still interesting? What feeling keeps returning? What change feels necessary when you are calm, fed, rested, and back inside your body? That's the part worth continuing to explore. I hope you have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for continuing to learn and work through all of this with me. And I will talk to you next week. And until then, stay grounded.